Central. Let's head to the Motor City. And what was I watching this week? I was rewatching the Fab Five documentary because that is on Disney Plus now. Check that stuff out. Michigan Wolverines. Are they a team that are going to potentially win the national championship? Who knows? But Detroit basketball is, I mean, this is the first time we've had this 2-2 this week. I was looking at this like, this is good.
Yeah.
This is a good week. So I just put you back at the top. I was like,
let's do it.
Sorry, Matt. Pistons, I don't think they're going to hit 2-2 again. So Wildy.
Let's celebrate while it's hot. So win against Raptors. Really, really nice game. Unbelievable performance by Powell on the Raptors. It wasn't like Raptors laid over and let them get the win. Came down to the final shot, and for the second time on this podcast, I kind of got to call myself out a little bit because been talking a lot of trash on Jeremy Grant and how he doesn't necessarily want to be the player at the end of the game with the ball in his hands. Yet he has played amazingly in the clutch this week and weeks prior, but we just haven't been covering it at those points. But here's the game winner. A step back mid-range on that sort of extended free throw line area that he loves to hit shot from. So it's great to see that him develop more into his role as a leader man on that team now that they have lost Blake. And just on a side note there, now that Blake has left, he's finally managed to dunk in a game.
Pistons have been hoodwinked.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, we've been had. It's just one of those things. But at least they've got that whole situation out of the way now, so that they can move forward with whatever plans they have into the future. Really big game from Saddiq Bey in that Raptors game. This is really the highlight. That Raptors game is really the highlight of these 4 games for me from talking on it. 28 points, and a really, really key point is 12 rebounds for this guy. Okay, when you're young, you're new in the league, you're hitting shots the way you're hitting them, and they weren't all just wide open. Yeah, he had fakes, dribble to the side, hitting them. These are versatile shots he's hitting throughout his game. It will be so easy for him to get in his own head overexcited and going nuts. But you remain poised throughout the whole game to maintain focus and help your team out in other ways other than your immense scoring output, which is way higher than your average. I just think shows great character on a young player's part, which is just awesome. So I love that part of the stat line. But obviously 6 from 10 from 3 is awesome. You love to see that from a guy, one of you guys that you drafted this year to have that kind of production so early. But the main theme for these guys, now that Jeremy Grant and Plumlee, they're holding it down. Plumlee being the vet of all vets on this team. He's a bit of a rock for them on the rebounding side of things, and some IQ. But every game is really like Jeremy Grant is going to get his numbers. It's going to help the team towards a more positive outcome, and then it's anybody else's, ball game to become a second banana to him. Frank Jackson, he had a nice game at 23 points, another one in the other win in this week. So, really, really nice stuff. Great.
Saddiq Bey caught your attention. It caught my attention because he's another player on Ed's, bottom 2 seeded team blowing up. Of course, another player going off. And he's also got the attention of another team, the Sacramento Kings. And we head to our correspondent, Bray, for news on this trade. What have you heard, Bray?
It's been reported, I've heard, that the Kings wanted to try and trade Marvin Bagley for Saddiq Bey. Marvin Bagley, the number 2 pick in the 2018 draft, drafted ahead of Luka Doncic, and they wanted to trade him for Saddiq Bey. And the Pistons, very rightly so, might I add, turned around and told them where to shove it. They said no. And honestly, I was like, yes, the Rockets need to, get a really high draft pick. Doesn't matter for the Kings because they're picking Marvin Bagley, who, if I'm honest, probably won't be in the league 5 years from now, whereas Saddiq Bey might be someone.
Saddiq Bey will be someone, I guarantee it.
You heard it here first. the quotable image, Sadiq Bey will be someone. Sadiq Bey, 14.5 points per game and 6 rebounds on 37% from free. Isaiah Stewart, their backup big, is averaging 11 points per game and 6 rebounds off the bench. What have you seen out of these two guys? Obviously, he's talked about Sadiq Bey and his composure. What have you seen from Stewart?
Stewart's great, man. Another guy that they brought in this season from the draft. So they have drafted really well. Detroit have, which is great given the current situation that they're in. Look, he's a big mobile guy. He has a 3-point shot as well, which is great. I was reading up on him, and some people, it's very early on, so all this stuff is just a little bit of fun. But he's looking to potentially be like a Bam Adebayo type. Personally, I don't quite like that comparison just yet, purely because I don't think he's as fluid with the dribble as much as Bam is, but he has better range than Bam had at that time. But look, he's a high energy guy, help you on the boards, very versatile. I like him a lot, and he's playing very well.
It was a great tweet. That was by on Pistons thread on Twitter, and it showed the Obama gif of him typing out, and then Michelle coming in and taking the phone off them. And it said, Isaiah Stewart is the best Detroit big since Andre Drummond. And then it obviously cuts off. Yeah, very good. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Another team that went 2-2 this week, that they had a really positive week, actually, because they've beaten some big teams. And we will hear about this from Lancashire Lambert, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland, this is for you. Lancashire Lambert, talk to me.
Yeah, the Cavs 2-2 in the last week. They're actually 5-5 in the last 10. Still 12th in the East. However, the surprise is that they're 5-5 in the last 10. This is versus my other two teams in the East: the Raptors, who are 1-9 in their last 10, and the Wizards, who are 2-8 in their last 10. So who'd have thought that the Cavs would be the strongest out of my teams in the East of late? And the 4 games have been pretty tough games on paper, but they've come out from them pretty well. They lost 113-98 to the Heat, in which the main real highlight for the Cavs was like this brutal block by Jarrett Allen on a Bam Adebayo dunk. 2 blocks from Jarrett Allen in that game, and he's currently 6th for most blocks in the NBA. He's got about 69. And then they rebounded with a great win against the Celtics, 117-110. Darius Garland got 18 points in the first half. He finished with about 25 points, 6 assists. And Colin Sexton, 29 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Great performance from those two. And they kept the Celtics to 26% from behind the 3-point arc. And then a loss against the Spurs, 116-110, which is fairly respectable. I think it was DeMar DeRozan's first game back. And then a great win against the Raptors, 116-105. A few stat lines to shout out from that. Colin Sexton, 36 points, 6 for 9 from 3-point. Jarrett Allen, 17 points, 15 rebounds. And then there was a certain D. Wade who got 16 points in 18 minutes and was 4 for 7 from 3-point range. But he's not a 6'4" shooting guard. He's actually a 6'9" point power forward, and his name isn't Dwayne. He's called Dean. So Dean Wade.
Dino Wade.
Thank you for bringing that up, because on 2K you can get like normally players with my team, players send in like to get locker codes, and you can get like higher rated of these players. And we were just sitting with Jones, our friend, who's a Cavs fan, and we were like, who are these people? Dean Wade, but his name was D Wade, and we're like, D Wade's back with the Cavs? Yeah.
It was the biggest troll, because I got the card and I was like, who is this guy? He was rated 92 cards, so he was sick, but he'd never played an NBA game in his life. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I don't know if we like this nickname, but maybe I'm just going to throw out Sexland. The backcourt of Sexton and Garland. So Sexton is averaging, in his last week, he's averaging 28.8 points per game, 46% from free. And you've got Darius Garland. He's averaging 20 points per game, 6 assists a game, and also shooting 50% from free. So I was just going to ask you a question. Where do you think they rank in terms of backcourts in the NBA? You've obviously got Kyrie and Harden. You've got Dame and CJ, CP3 Booker, Lowry and Van Fleet. Where would you rank them now?
Yeah, I think you've reeled off a few of them. The only ones, I was having a look earlier, and the only ones who you can probably say are definitely better than them right now are Kyrie and Harden, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, CJ and Lillard, which you mentioned, Conley and Mitchell. And then, to be honest, you can make a case that they're better than the Wizards with Russ and Beal. You can make a case, the two of them, like I know obviously Bradley Beal is going off, but you can if you just look at the standings in general, the Cavs are better than the Wizards at the moment. So you can make a case for that. Same goes for the Raptors with Van Vliet and Lowry. You can make that exact same argument. And then also the Heat with Hero and Robinson. You can make a case that they're actually performing better than those. So you could have them as high as the 5th best backcourt in the NBA.
One thing I will say about Lowry and Van Fleet, just put some respect on their name. You know, like Birdman says, they've got a ring. You know, and Van Fleet was huge in that deciding game.
But in terms of form, like you can't really argue against the form that these two are in right now. They're playing exceptionally well, and Colin Sexton's been getting some ridiculous. I think he had like 2 35-point games recently. One of those against the Bucks as well, and he's in great form. And Darius Garland's really improved of late too. So they're definitely a really strong duo.
They're a long way from a couple of podcasts back when you had that rant about the Cavs and you were like, "What are they? Boring, dull. 2-2 ain't dull." So that's good. I'm happy for you in that sense.
Hey, if they can prove me wrong, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, preach. We reward winning on this podcast, Ed, and you are right. So what do? I slapped you bang in the middle of the podcast to shut you up. Yeah. So the Milwaukee Bucks, and maybe I am salty because they did beat Philly this week. So yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks 3-0 this week, 27-14 overall. They're currently in the 3rd seed, but they're moving and grooving. Ed, talk to me.
So, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'll take you over there. 21-13 last time we spoke, and 7 games since then. As you just mentioned, Alex, 27-14, which is a 6-1 record. Very, very lovely. 3-0 this week, and last 12 games they've won 11. So they've been on quite a run. I'm not sure if you remember last time we spoke, it was that they've won like they won 5, lost 5, then won another 5, and they've been on like another massive winning streak since. They are getting into their groove. So in those last 7 games since we last spoke about the Bucks, their loss was against the Nuggets, and it was a trouncing. They got beaten by 30 points. Jokic had his 50th triple-double of his career and puts him only behind Wilt for the most triple-doubles by a center during a specific time period. He went crazy that game. But their wins came back-to-back against the Wizards, Knicks, Spurs, and you just mentioned an overtime game against the Sixers where Giannis sat in the middle of the court, almost Juju-esque, I guess. Instead of dancing, he just sat in the middle of the court. Sure you like that, didn't you? So one thing to mention about Giannis, during that time period where Bucks have won 11 of 12, he has shot 35% from 3 and 78% from the free throw line. We've mentioned earlier in previous pods Giannis's sharp decline in free throw percentage and how I was worried about that. He seemed to tick up a bit more, and 35% from free throw is ideal. That's a nice place where we wanted to get at. One thing I wanted to speak about, so I'm going to speak about general stuff. One thing I want to speak about last time, which didn't get a chance to, I'm just going to quickly touch upon now, is Chris Middleton. And I like the idea of the offense running through Chris Middleton a bit more than it already is. I know Bucks have tried it previously before a couple of years ago when it hasn't worked as well, but I think he's now he's matured since then. And I was looking at some stats to read back up, and when you do watch Middleton, his post game is just so good. His mid-range jumper and his shooting ability is so nice. You don't really appreciate how good it is until you really watch him. And I do sometimes get annoyed when analysts sort of brush off his impact and don't really appreciate what he does bring to this Milwaukee team and how he's an out-and-out all-star in general, but because he's played alongside Giannis, he doesn't get the same respect he deserves. I was looking at post-up stats, and so Chris Middleton is second in points per post-up possession amongst guards with at least one attempt. There's only one guard who's better than him at post-ups. Can anyone guess who that is, actually? I'm really intrigued to see if you guys can guess who could that potentially be.
It's got to be either CP3 or Books.
Yeah,
It's Devin Booker.
Yeah.
Devin Booker.
Say it.
Do you know
Devin
that
Booker is the only...
Ed, do you know what's really funny about that? You remember where he had that video when they were like training and he was in the post and they were doubling and he was like, no, you can't double. That's really interesting. Okay.
So that's just something when I was looking at Middleton to really explain how good I think he is and how he should potentially be more involved during the longer periods of the game. That is something I picked. I was like, here's proof that maybe you should give it's something that's underutilized. Maybe you should get Chris Middleton a couple more possessions there. He could elevate his game to another level. Now, linking on to specifically the Philly game, Giannis took over in the late game, and maybe that's something for the Bucks moving forward, where they can rely on other players during the second, third quarter to get those points. But then when you really need Giannis to step up and get those buckets as it usually does, maybe that's the approach to take, and that could be the most efficient way for Bucks to play offense. That's an idea. We'll see how it goes if that is something they choose to do during the playoffs.
Yeah, so last week the Bucks actually acquired PJ Tucker.
Yeah,
and they sent away one of your boys, DJ Augustine. Well, they sent away two DJs, Augustine and Wilson. Yep. He played his first game against the Spurs last night. He had 13 minutes, 0 points, 3 rebounds, and 0 assists. Rate this acquisition, Ed. Give me a grade rating.
When you set it up like that, you make it sound like he had 0 impact.
I don't think it's a good move, Ed, at all.
Oh,
but,
really?
Yeah. No, I think it's dead.
Okay. So
yeah, it's not about me.
The overall narrative. So my assumption of it was, okay, that seems good, but they did give up quite a bit because I think they gave up some draft assets as well. So my initial assumption was, it's very win now, but I guess that's definitely what the Bucks are. PJ Tucker is primarily there for a defensive perspective. He was playing center minutes when the Rockets were doing ultra small ball lineup. He knows how to guard big men. He knows how to switch, which fits with the new Bucks defensive scheme of playing switching defenses, which is also why they got rid of DJ Augustine, because he doesn't necessarily match that defensive scheme. And he hasn't been performing on offense like the Bucks wanted him to. Now, the big drawback becomes they have got no backup point guard. If Drew Holiday goes down, they don't have any other point guards. Dante DiVincenzo is another backup point guard. That is something that is worrying for the Bucks, and they do need to get another point guard. Because I checked as well, I'm like, wait, they got rid of DJ. Who's the backup guards? And there's literally no one else. So that is something to look out for. The Bucks should be in the market for another point guard. PJ Tucker, he doesn't corner. He's the most specialist corner 3 shooter you're going to find in the league. He'll just plant there and wait for a corner 3, and you can't leave him open. And he does occupy one defender, because I think he's got one of the best corner 3-point percentages in the whole league over a certain time period. So that's what he provides on the offense, but it's primarily for the defense, and the versatility allows the Bucks to do in defense and how they can switch on everything from Drew Holiday at the point guard to Giannis or PJ, whoever they play at the center. They can switch on every single player in the field, and that can make the Bucks really hard to beat on defense.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point about the backup point guard, because they do have Forbes, but he's traditionally a shooter, like you said.
Yeah, he's not going to be a ball handler.
They're great on defense as it is. Like, we really struggled in the first half against them, so I'm not worried about their defense. I think it's very much about carrying the load offensively. Hence why I don't like the PJ Tucker acquisition. Right, let's move on to Indiana, who have got a scorer back, Bray, which you must be so happy about, because I think you've got him on your fantasy team as well. He loves it. Karras is back. 2-2 this week, 19-22. We love the enthusiasm. It's good because Bray is, he's traditionally seen as negative, but it's good to see him positive on the other side. Great. Let's discuss Indiana.
Indiana Pacers had high hopes. They've been treading water so far, but as you mentioned, they've got Karras back. He's 14, 4-4 with a steal, shooting at the moment 37% from the field. He hasn't played in a while. He's still coming back, which means he's going to get better. It's amazing. He's going to get back to that kind of 18 points a game where he was at before. Really excited about that. They're 19 and 22, the Pacers, as you mentioned, 4 and 6 in their last 10. And massive pair of wins against the Heat this week. 2 wins. They take the series, as we've talked about on numerous occasions. That doesn't often happen. Normally it's split, unless obviously it's like the Pistons versus the Heat. Not the Heat, the Lakers this week.
You got enough
the Pistons beat the
call out on your own squad.
Did they? I was thinking of a team at the bottom. The Timberwolves versus the Lakers. Apologies.
You're right. And that's another one of your teams.
But normally, as we say, those games get split either because they're on back-to-backs, people get arrested, stuff like that. But they managed to take both of them against someone who they are very much in a race with. Now, obviously, they are now sat at 9th in the East because they're below 500. But they're 2.5 games out of the 4 seed. So have a good week and everything goes your way. So really not worried. Obviously, Karras is coming back as well. And they've had one of the kind of 10 hardest schedules in the league as well, which means luckily things will start to look up a little bit. I would really hope they get over 500. If I think about where I'd like to see them, they're currently sat behind the Hornets, Knicks, Celtics, Heat and Hawks. I think with the Hornets, they can probably jump them. Now, unfortunately, LaMelo is out for the rest of the season. The Knicks have got a really hard schedule coming up, so you think maybe they could get over them if they play well, but only if they play well. And then, against the Celtics and the Heat, it's anyone's game. And then obviously the Hawks are streaking. If they keep that up, they probably won't catch them. But you never know. They might come back down to earth. So it's still all to play for. It's not all doom and gloom. I'm happy with the Pacers. It's just Karras being back. It's amazing. They needed it so much.
Yeah. He also opens stuff up for people so much. Like you look at the week that Brogdon's had. Brogdon was really struggling. Against the Nuggets, 24-6-4. Against the Nets, he was 24-4-3. Against the Heat, he was 27-3-4. Having that other scorer really takes the attention off of you, and he's able to operate. And we know how efficient Brogdon is as of a scorer and also as a playmaker. And you've got the same for Sabonis. But the thing that I think impresses me the most about Karras was what he did last night. He had the final shot in regulation, which he actually missed, and he also hit a big shot in overtime, which I think was over Tyler Hero. I think it was, to put them up 3. But despite winning in Miami, actually Pacers ranked last in clutch offense. They only score 96 points per 100 possessions. Do you think this will improve under Karras? Are you giving him the ball when the game's on the line?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously they've got fourth quarter struggles. They are 15 of their 22 losses. They've led in the second half, so they do blow leads. They've had the most fourth quarter turnovers in the league. Their troubles are not just on offense, but on defense as well. Like Turner helps them on defense, but shrinks the floor massively on offense. So you don't see him play so often in the fourth quarter. It's kind of a decision they're going to have to make coaching-wise, whether they start to play him down the stretch. I think it's dependent on how the offense is flowing. Obviously, with Karras in there, help stretch out the floor again, pick and roll threat too. So maybe you start to see Turner in there as well. But to be honest, I think it's right to have the ball in Karras' hands most of the time. And especially, obviously, one-on-one, he's going to get a good shot. Always going to get a good shot. And if anyone tries to bring a second defender, Doug McDermott, open for a 3. Brogdon, open for a 3. Get it to Sabonis and let him make a play. Or, I'd really like to see more Levert, Sabonis pick and roll, because they can both facilitate equally well. I think that'd be really good. I think when they bring those 3 key guys together, so Levert, Sabonis, and Brogdon, it means that now all of a sudden you've got a weaker defender most likely on the other team. One of those guys allows you to go to other people. If one of them manages to blow past their man or get in a good position, all of a sudden you've got double team coming in, ball flying out to McDermott, to TJ Warren when he's back. That is a crunch time 5 that can definitely get a bucket when it needs to.
Yeah, and also another shout out to one of my favourite players in the league, TJ McConnell. Okay, in that Heat win, 16 points, 6 rebounds, and 15 assists. Nuts.
Oh, he was finding dome with dome on everything. Those
Ridiculous.
two guys play so well together.
They've got to have a nickname because it's like they're both Mac. You know, we've got to come up with a nickname, guys. Maybe I'm going to break 3 weeks. You've got brainstorm away. You know, come back to me. I like that. Let's close out the Central with Mr. Blackout himself. Jord, are you still there? Is everything okay in
Yes.
House of 03?
I'm still here in the darkness, trying to find a candle or a light, but we'll see.
Has
Upside down.
So yeah, Bulls 2-2. Again, staying stagnant for House of 03, it seems, this week, which isn't what I particularly want, seeing as now I'm letting Ed get away from me when I was so close. But we move on. Anyway, overall record 19-22. The last 10, 4-6. So yeah, their last games they had they won against the Pistons, 100-86. Loss against Denver, a loss against the Spurs, and a win against Oklahoma. They also saw the return of Markkanen finally, which was good since we last spoke. So that's been nice having him back, and seeing the way he contributes and attributes the team has been great. Now, getting back to my previous point, which I made earlier about these two teams seem to be having major issues with the turnovers, and now this is especially with the Bulls, especially in the fourth quarter. Against the Spurs, they led by 13 points after the third quarter, and 8 points in the last 7 minutes. But then they committed 4 turnovers, which saw the Spurs then go on a 17-0 run. Now, that is not good news when, as we mentioned before, the team seemed to struggle with like defense, and now you're playing for the other team as well. It's like, it's not going to work at all. Some slight good news on the other hand, if you can take it as that. It's nice to see that the head coach is mixing up that starting lineup a bit. And I think that definitely saw some improvement, especially in the first quarter, which helped them out a bit, especially defensively. They took out the starters, Kobe White and Wendell Carter, and swapped him in Thaddeus Young and Satoransky. So that I think that was a nice change, but we'll see how Matthew will carry on tweaking or not, or if he's happy with it. But yeah, turnovers in the fourth are not a helpful run, and especially you saw that again in their Denver game as well, which Murray sealed like a dagger 3 at the end out of that turnover as well.
Yeah, that Nuggets game was tough because I know Murray sent the game into OT, and then you look at the Spurs collapse as well. But we're going to talk about their main man, Zach LaVine, who in the Thunder win had 40 points. He went 15 of 20 from field goal from the field, and he shot 15 for 15 from the field, so he didn't miss, which is unreal. So I spoke to Bray, and I was talking about Zach LaVine and who he is, earlier this week. And what does Bray say? Bray says that he thinks the Bulls need to trade Zach LaVine at the deadline. Thinks that he's only a not second string, a number 2 or a number 3. So House of 03, Jord, do you agree with this point? I'm trying to start some beef. Let's make it happen.
Alex, you already know the beef is already there. I'm focused on this debate of the Bulls making the playoffs. Like I'm checking up on Ed, making sure I make that, but I'm also checking on this Bulls making the playoffs, that kind of beef. So of course I'm disagreeing with Bray here. LaVine is up there. The man's just come off the All-Star, and he's he's just putting points on the board constantly. I think he's like currently third in the league, behind Lillard and Beal for scoring over 30 points. So that's absolutely insane. Like like they say, like with Curry and Lillard, soon as they step over the halfway line, you gotta be scared. You gotta be worried because he is coming in.
I'm with you. But Bray wants to interject. Anybody else can interject if they think that Zach LaVine should be traded. You know.
What for?
Let me ask you this: like everyone here, think about your team. Think about: do you want Zach LaVine as your number one option?
That's not Zach LaVine's fault. That's the organization's fault. You need to get better players.
Yeah.
That's not Zach LaVine's fault.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's Zach LaVine's fault.
So then what are you going to do? Make your team worse? You already have a second option. So like, okay, instead of getting a first option, let's just get rid of our second option.
You can't get a first option. Like you can't. Like what first option free agent are you getting in Chicago? Because they ain't getting a lottery pick. That's for sure.
So what I was going to say is that that doesn't make sense then. Let's say you draft a player and becomes a second tier player. It's like, he's not good enough. We need to move on to get another first tier player. It doesn't make sense. Just because he isn't a first tier player doesn't mean you need to get rid of him. You need to get just better pieces around him. He may be overqualified for his role, but that's nothing to get rid of him.
Yeah, like I agree with you. There are definitely situations where having a bunch of great second tier players is going to be super, super useful. For example, like the Clippers before they got Kawhi, were like, this is like an actual team. Like, hello, we're a Kawhi away. But the ball's on that because look down the rest of the roster. They're not a bunch of second tier players. They are a bunch of players who are underperforming, and I don't think they have the ability to get a star as constructed. The peak of this team is the 10th seed. The 10th.
So
you go.
Go on.
I should say, you guys have sucked for a long time, okay? And you finally have Zach LaVine who's coming along and playing well. There's an exciting element to the team that hasn't been there for a long time. So, first of all, it's a very weird year. So right now we are talking about the potential of where they are this season. In my opinion, is irrelevant to what might be next season. I don't think you need to be trading away somebody like Zach LaVine, who is somebody to build around. You're at the moment you're just trying to build that base to add more. At the moment, as you say, you can't. If you trade Zach, you're not getting back the same value that you're giving away.
Yeah.
Fact. So trading him isn't going to put you in a better place. You might as well sit where you are at the moment and build from there.
Can I follow up with two quick things? Fine. How did you feel when the initial trade was made to get Zach LaVine?
To get Zach LaVine, because they traded away Butler, didn't they? So that's an L. Straight in there. Like, let's not even dig old L.
Would you have the same feelings of Zach LaVine if he was a third tier player? Would you care to trade him? Or are you just trading him just to get value back? Because as Wildy was saying, you're not going to get anyone better than Zach LaVine. You're going to be trading a second tier player for a third tier player. You're not going to get anyone
better than Zach LaVine. However, they have a different front office now who might actually be able to draft well. Like they might. So
that's a massive gamble.
Yeah, it is, but that's how you get to be a top 4 seed. You don't get to be a top 4 seed with Zach LaVine as the number one guy.
So what's the trade? What are you getting in return for Zach LaVine?
I mean, I'd be looking at teams who are in serious win now mode and are looking for that third piece. So think about those Bradley Beal suitors, and then you want to get those picks that are kind of like 3 years out, because then they're kind of more, they're guaranteed to be kind of a little bit higher. But obviously, everyone's ripped the Rockets making all those win now trades, and now they're terrible. Those are the kind of situations you're looking to exploit. And yes, I agree. Like, you're not going to get anyone better than Zach LaVine. But if I'm the Bulls, I want to build through the draft because I'm not excited by their team. And I'm concerned at the lack of player development at the moment. And I don't know, like Zach LaVine's the only one who's come on this season, the only one. And a lot of those players, I really do expect more.
You're concerned about player development, but you want them to draft some guy 3 years into the future.
Yeah, I need you like the new GM has only just come in. They need a chance to reset and get rid of put their own stamp on things and get rid of the old stuff. Honestly, I don't like where the Bulls are at. I don't like the ceiling of this team because it's so low.
We're still making the playoffs, Chicago. We're gonna end it there.
They're making the
interesting. Come on, baby,
play-in.
Chicago. You got me and House of 03 as your fans. You don't need to worry
Now
about
I want Chicago to make the playoffs as well.
Come on,
just because
Chicago.
of Bray.
Zach Levine,
It's
you're
gonna
an
be a
all-star.
party
You shouldn't
when
be
they
traded.
do.
Oh, that's a sad party.
They won't win a play-in game to get into the playoffs. They won't do it.
Chicago, we believe in you. Right, let's go to the leaderboard.
Can someone timestamp for us, just so we have?
I mean, look, we can.
He's going to say it every week. He's going to say it every week.
I will admit that I'm wrong, but I just don't see it for this team. Like, honestly, like Larry Markkinen, regression. Wendell Carter, regression. Kobe White, regression. They're all terrible defenders. They've got pieces they can trade. Honestly, I think you give it a year, Zach Levine will be asking for a trade to a contender. Like, he's not going to want to stick around on a subpar team. He's a good player, but
then why
I
would you
don't
trade
really
Zach? You want to trade other pieces for other role players.
Because I feel like if you trade Zach, you're more likely to make the step backwards instead of forwards, and then you have to tank and then build from there.
That's what Bray wants.
Take the step backwards. Get someone really good. Look at the Mavs. The Mavs have. I think
the Mavs were lucky that the Kings were picking ahead of them and the Atlanta were picking ahead of them. But we spent way too long on this. Sorry, Alex. That was sorry.
Well, talking about interesting takes, let's head to the leaderboard. And where do we start? At the man who is at the head of controversy and at the bottom of the leaderboard. He's been taking a lot of L's. He's also been distributing them out. That was a very good segment. I like that. Anyway, Saltbury, you are still in fifth. You've got your record is 100 to 151. You are just below 40%. Your best team is the Miami Heat, 21 and 22. Your worst team are the Minnesota Timberwolves, which, let's put this in perspective, the Rockets have lost 20 games in a row, and yet the Timberwolves still haven't won as many games as the Houston Rockets, which is madness. I can see why you're
they are looking better recently. I'll give them that.
Right. Anyway, Lancashire Lambert. I'd say that the silent assassin, just plodding along. I think fourth is a good position. You can do a lot. There might be some mistakes still to go.
Five, you're big enough saying fourth out of five is a good position.
Fourth out of six. Do you want me to just put you on blast? I'm trying to help you. Anyway, 114 to 135. You are at 46%. Your best team is Mr. Sortcode, Denver Nuggets. And your worst team is the Washington Wizards. But it's very close between the Cavs and the Raps. Wildy, continuing climbing. The Pero Antic Express, all aboard. 132 to 119. You are at 52%. Your best team is Belay. And your worst team is the Motor City. And then it's very close. It's still very close at the top. House of 03, 139 to 113 at 55%. Your best team is Brooklyn, and it seems like it's going to stay that way because of what happened with Bron and AD being out. And your worst team is the Pels, so pretty similar. And then just ahead of you, House Lasku, he's still on top, but he's hanging by a thread. 141 to 108 at 56%. Your best team, still the Jazz. Your worst team, the Orlando Magic. And we have played 58% of the games. Any small thoughts on the leaderboard from anyone? Anybody want to trash talk each other just quick?
I think credit to Wildy. He's at 52% now. That he's only 3% behind Jord. Like, that is an improvement, because we were like tied at around 46, 47 for a while, and he's just left me for dead. So fair play.
Those Mountain Hawks resurgence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Schlink has bought himself another year, I reckon, as GM with that head coach firing, because he can just point to that now, get himself another year to work with.
8-0. Yeah.
It's very, very exciting. Very exciting.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Okay, that will wrap it up for division discussions. We're going to take a short break and then we're going to hit with our extra stuff for this week.